Let's get into the programme and the news. Plans afoot for a cabinet reshuffle, we hear. That following a torrid year in office, with the Prime Minister planning to inject more purpose, it's said, into the government following weeks of setbacks.
Who comes up with these phrases? Going to inject more purpose. Anyway, it's all happening as Angela Rayner is binned by Unite, the union, over the recent bin strikes in Birmingham. The union has also announced that it's now going to review its relationship with the Labour Party overall.
Former Conservative Minister Kevin Foster, we're delighted to say, joins us in the studio. Very nice to see you, Kevin. Kevin, I think it's totally appropriate for the union to bin Angela Rayner. I just don't understand how I could be a socialist MP standing up for the working person and whatever, and then telling the bin operatives in Birmingham, accept the deal you're being offered, which could mean you losing 8,000 quid a year. Where is the union in that?
Well, it's interesting. You could have a long conversation about how equal pay in Birmingham for city council for many years has not implemented and got to where they are today. But binning off Angela Rayner, who's busy pushing forward things on workers' rights and other things that actually the unions really wanted to see. But actually, I don't think this is going to do her much harm in the long run.
Why?
Well, the reason why, if she wants to replace Keir Starmer, one of the concerns for a lot of particularly Labour MPs and less so Labour activists, particularly Labour MPs, will be how would she appeal to the middle ground at a next general election? She can't be Corbyn in a dress. She has to be something that can appeal a bit more across the range of political opinion. So this may actually help her.
And her stand is sort of standing up for the people, for the citizens of Birmingham, who are living through atrocious times at the moment with rubbish piling up in their streets.
Yeah,
it is, although a lot of that's part
surely,
of the
you are a union representative being a Labour Party person, and if you're not sticking up for the working people, what do you stand for?
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it?
Well, it is. What is the Labour Party there for? Is it to basically be delegates from their trade union, or is it to try and stand a bit more in the middle between Birmingham taxpayers who, let's be honest, have been getting hit constantly for increasing council tax and ever worsening services?
But what I'd say about that, Kevin, is that if you put yourself in that position, would you take an £8,000 pay cut in your job? Answer, no. People won't do it, and people have got to be honest and ask themselves, well, it's OK, at least my bins are empty, that's fine, I don't care about anything else, but you've got to care about the greater good.
Well, I think you've got to look at what the situation is there, but I think most people would say, actually, there are quite a lot of advantages to working for your local council that don't come with your average job, the type of pension scheme that you'll have at your local authority. Job security, something that a lot of people do not have at the moment. You're likely to be fairly stable in your employment. And again, actually, there's quite a long story in Birmingham about equal pay and various pay deals over the years that literally have just been weak leadership for many, many years that have left Birmingham literally bankrupt.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private internet access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
But there's also a long story to Angela Rayner's relationship with Unite anyway, because she claims, or her people are claiming, that she'd already left Unite. She to heck with the idea that I'm being binned by Unite. I'd already left. But whatever, a lot of their MPs at the moment are going through this real... they can't figure out where they stand, because wherever they stand at the moment, because they should be socialist MPs, as it were, wherever they stand at the moment, they're going to offend almost one half of their own parliamentary party.
Well, I think the problem they've had is how little preparation was actually done to be a party of government rather than just be a party of opposition, despite all the claims they made before the election. You know, you're now seeing, for example, issues around things like Donald Trump's state visit, where numerous people's tweets are now being quoted. We saw, for example, with the growth figures yesterday, people immediately reminding themselves of only 3 years ago, Rachel Reeves demanding an emergency budget when a similar growth figure was put up. Well, that was clear palpable nonsense 3 years ago, and it'd be palpable nonsense to suggest that again today. So there's that transition from opposition to government has clearly not gone well at all, and many people are now having to engage with the fact that, you know, there's some really tough decisions and difficult decisions to be made, and they aren't going to be solved by sort of student union style politics. And that's where some of the, I think, tensions are coming in the Labour Party compared to, let's say, the operation Tony Blair had after 1997, where they'd clearly done a lot to prepare for power. They'd prepared their candidates who would then go on to be MPs for power, and then ran a very, very tight ship where realistically the opposition didn't get a look in for 6-7 years.
So what are your predictions then for a reshuffle?
Well, I think for a reshuffle, first, it's going to be interesting to see Keir Starmer basically look at his cabinet and say, I think it's all your fault, and then try and change it.
So will Rachel Reeves be made a scapegoat, maybe?
I think the problem with taking out a Chancellor is, inevitably, the Prime Minister will follow. Because
that historically happens.
Because ultimately, budgets, yes, are presented by the Chancellor, but if a Prime Minister tries to say, "Oh, I didn't know about that," "Oh, that was all her," absolute rubbish. Every part of that budget will have been signed off at Number 10 before it went out. And he was very keen in the past to say how closely they worked together, and now they seem to be trying to distance a little bit. And just changing faces, changing personnel isn't going to make a difference. No one out there is saying, God, if only there was a new Northern Ireland secretary, or if only they changed over who's in charge at DCMS. That isn't going to change the Labour Party's polling fortunes. And exactly the same as Rishi Sunak's last reshuffle made not a jot of difference to the Conservative Party's polling position. Unless you change the policies and change the message, you're going to get the same outcome.
But we can read a lot into a reshuffle, can't we? I mean, maybe too much, but certain characters will be jostling for promotion positions or whatever.
Absolutely. You can read a bit into it about who a Prime Minister might see as an eventual successor, what type of policies they are interested in, who they want to sort of reward, and also who they see as having done a genuinely poor job and needing to be removed from the administration. But I think if at Number 10 they think a reshuffle is going to really, in itself, is going to turn around where Labour is in the polls, then I'm afraid they only need to look at recent past to see it won't.
Am I alone in being, trying to think of the right word here, cheesed off in watching Starmer hug Emmanuel Macron?
Oh, I'm fed up with that. Are you?
Every day. I'm fed up with it. Every day. It's as if he hasn't seen... Every day.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean that. But yeah, it's so sham, isn't it? They're doing it for the cameras, because at one point they broke away and then they realised that obviously the snappers were still going, and so they hugged each other again.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I mean, ugh.
Yeah, it does just look fake. It looks like you're trying to say, oh, look how close we are. We're great mates. We're brilliant friends.
And then what does Macron do? Gives a speech which sort of rubbishes us.
Yeah, it gives a speech which has a go at Brexit, you know, his favourite thing to have a go at. But ultimately, the two of them actually have one thing in common. Both of them are struggling to get anything controversial through their parliaments. Both have pretty dire poll ratings, and many people are predicting that both of them will be gone within about 2-3 years' time. So, you know, in some ways, they could hug each other quite close, metaphorically as well as physically, but it does just look fake.
No, I mean, they can hug as much as they like, but it's not stopping migrants coming over in those boats, is it?
No, and it's not stopping. I mean, there was that poll during the week, people saying they want Starmer to go now.
Well, I think Keir Starmer is probably on the slide, but it's almost remarkable to think only a year ago where he was then, on the 5th of July, it looked like he had a decade in power. And now, actively in the Labour Party, the people behind the closed doors starting to speculate about who he could be replaced by. That's a huge turnaround in fortunes. It speaks volumes for him as an individual and in terms of weak leadership. And by the way, the opposition also needs to have its own discussions as well.
Well, true.
And who would your eye be on within the Labour Party? I mean, Angela Rayner being one of them, but she's not the only one. And I think the strongest candidates aren't MPs yet. That's where they've got a problem, like someone like Andy Burnham, for instance.
Yeah, the problem for someone like Andy Burnham, who I think many Labour Party members, a bit like, by the way, same with Boris Johnson in terms of the Conservative Party, is not in Parliament. However, if Andy Burnham wanted to get into Parliament, and there was a need to get him into Parliament, perceived by the Labour Party, you can imagine there'd be at least one Labour MP who'd, in a very safe Labour seat, would suddenly develop that pressing family issue we'd never heard, or that sudden ill health diagnosis that none of us realised they were ill, but suddenly means they can no longer carry on as an MP.
We think he's very popular amongst the Parliamentary Labour Party, but there are a lot who don't like him because he's got he was part of the Blair government.
Well, there will be people who'll spite in the past, but then again, in some ways that gives him credibility, and he can talk about his time as Greater Manchester Mayor, which probably is what has put him forward. Yeah. But it's interesting to contrast how being mayor has helped his political fortunes with what's happened to Sadiq Khan, whereas being London mayor has pretty much ended any hopes he has of leading the Labour Party.
OK. Kevin, thanks for your thoughts. We're going to have them again after 7 o'clock today.